thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives.
Greg Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama, he completely tore apart her carefully crafted image. With sharp sarcasm and precise commentary, he showed the difference between how she appears in public and the political role she's been quietly playing. It wasn't just an opinion, it felt like a well-planned attack on her reputation. By the end, even some of her biggest supporters were left questioning if she was still being honest.
To use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump. So, Kat, they know that they're having a hard time with men.
Right.
Doesn't seem like this is the right strategy.
No.
She basically says that
Greg Gutfeld didn't just walk into the studio that night, he walked in with confidence, like he was ready to stir things up. The topic: Michelle Obama, once First Lady, now media star, podcast host, and master of staying vague, all while rocking a Nike deal. Gutfeld came in fired up, ready to go after her. "Let's talk about Michelle," he said, spinning his pen like it was a weapon.
Even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind. Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
If you're enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe. Boom. Gutfeld was on a roll. He kept going, saying Michelle Obama's memoir, Becoming, should be called Becoming a Billionaire. Since it's about how hard it is to live in a mansion and still be expected to smile. Then came his main point. "Have you noticed the pattern?" he asked. "Every interview is like a lesson in playing the victim. Michelle is always overcoming something, always rising, which is kind of funny, since she's been at the top for about 15 years. The audience laughed even more, because behind the jokes was a sharp truth that really hit.
Continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
Now don't get me wrong, Gutfeld said, pretending to be innocent like a cat caught red-handed. She's smart, she's charismatic, she's accomplished. But let's not act like she's an underdog fighting her way up. She's not Rocky, she's a polished brand, like Yoda with a personal stylist. He then highlighted her speaking tours, branded merchandise, and podcasts where she talks about finding balance. All while standing in a designer kitchen bigger than a Whole Foods. Gutfeld paused for effect. We're not just hearing a message, we're being sold a lifestyle. Michelle Obama isn't just about empowerment, she's about marketing. It's feel-good capitalism dressed up in Instagram quotes. Then came his big point. She says she doesn't want to run for president, he said, raising an eyebrow. And maybe that's true. But her speeches sure sound like campaign practice, just in case. The country misses fancy words that don't really mean anything.
Maybe so, but her analysis seems a symptom of a greater problem that contributed to her party's loss. It goes back to seeing the group and not the person. I call it IPB, identity politics blindness. They lost not because Hillary was a woman, they lost because all they saw was a woman. Meanwhile, Trump took nothing for granted. Fact is, many voters would have happily voted for a woman, just not that one. Because unlike Trump, she didn't speak to their concerns, she only spoke of her entitlement. She just assumed that she had the vote. And just assuming a woman must vote for a woman seems pretty insulting from a man. Humans are more complex, surprising, and interesting than...
That line hit hard. Gutfeld mocked Michelle's usual tone, arms spread, voice sweet, saying, "We need to rise above, we need to come together, we need to hope, and we need to buy my hardcover for $29.99, now available at Target." The audience cracked up then. He focused on what he called her go-to move, the martyr card. "Michelle loves to remind us how hard it was living in the White House," he said, "that she had to be perfect, couldn't make mistakes, Couldn't be too black, too loud, ... You know, just like every other first lady who decorated trees and hosted dinners. He paused, then added dryly, except none of the others got a post-White House podcast produced by their husband and starring themselves. That's like giving yourself a 5-star Yelp review. Now he was going all in. She talks about having imposter syndrome, even though she's one of the most praised, protected public figures out there. If she's an imposter, what chance do the rest of us have? She's everywhere on my cereal box, in my Spotify feed, even in my dreams.
Michelle Obama has openly admitted that she and Barack sleep in separate bedrooms. Here's how it works. She sleeps downstairs and he likes men.
Gutfeld leaned back, deadpan. We used to say Big Brother is watching. Now Big Michelle is podcasting. And just when it seemed like he was finished, he ramped up for the big finish. Michelle's real power isn't her charm, it's that she's untouchable. She's bulletproof. If you criticize her, you're suddenly a sexist, a racist, a monster. But if she sells you empty slogans with a $90 candle and a motivational playlist, that's called leadership. The crowd was half shocked, half thrilled. They weren't used to someone going after Michelle Obama with this much energy, accuracy, and joy. It's all curated, he said. It's manufactured. It's politics turned into lifestyle branding. He took a sip and added casually, at this point, the only thing more polished than her PR team is her arms. Just as the laughter started to fade, Gutfeld dropped the line that set social media on fire. She didn't become, folks, she became a franchise.
The latest installment of What Happened in an Election That Occurred a year and a half ago. Michelle Obama was asked how Trump won, and she laid the blame on Hillary. Just kidding, she blamed sexism from women against women.
In light of this last election, I'm concerned about us as women and how we think. If we're not comfortable with the notion that a woman could be our president compared to what? You know, we have to have that conversation with ourselves.
The product, Gutfeld said, is self-importance with a side of kale. The room cracked up, but it didn't stop there. He suddenly got a bit more serious. Not too serious, just enough to show there was more behind the jokes. The real danger isn't Michelle herself, he said. It's that we keep falling for the same trick. Shiny speeches, emotional buzzwords, and vague empowerment slogans. All of it is meant to distract us from the truth. The system underneath doesn't change? That line hit differently. Gutfeld wasn't just mocking Michelle Obama, he was calling out the whole political celebrity machine she represents. He wasn't tearing down her accomplishments, he was asking why they're always wrapped in media polish and soft lighting. Why do we mistake being seen for being real? Why do we cheer for relatable people whose hard choices involve picking between a TED Talk and a Vogue cover? And then, like a sniper with a punchline instead of a rifle, he delivered the final blow.
I've been busy working on a new podcast, and so far, it's been a flop. The first 2 episodes have been up all day and only gotten a few thousand views on YouTube. Half of them are probably primetime producers. But still, Michelle's spilling the family secrets, like how Barry gets on her nerves. Listen.
Barack, he had to adjust to what on time was.
Because he was on that island time.
Well, but, I've got this husband who's like, when it's time to leave, it's 3 o'clock, he's getting up and going to the bathroom. And I was like, dude, like 3 o'clock departure means you've done all that, It's like, don't start looking for your glasses.
She's not leading a movement, she's leading a marketing campaign, and we're the ones buying it. Along with her athleisure line, mic drop. But this wasn't just a takedown, it was a disruption. Gutfeld didn't just tear apart Michelle Obama's image. He exposed the glossy layer that surrounds every political figure turned lifestyle guru, because in the end, it wasn't about left or right, it was about real versus fake. And Greg Gutfeld, whether you love him or hate him, has a sharp nose for fake. Like a bloodhound on espresso. When he went after Michelle Obama, it wasn't personal. He was aiming at the fog machine, the spotlight, the echo chamber. He was saying what no one else on primetime TV dares to. Maybe, just maybe, the most relatable woman in America is a carefully crafted illusion. An image built to keep you inspired, but also distracted, and comfortably asleep. Whether you agreed with him or not, one thing was clear. Greg Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama, he unplugged the myth, and just as the laughter began to fade, Gutfeld leaned in, like a villain revealing the final plot twist.
Talk to you about
Michelle Obama's ongoing midlife meltdown, like her, like as you put it, her Stegosaurus hairdos, the utterance the other day, she says she's transitioning. I mean, I think we both know what she's trying to do by using that word.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of all of this? Like, what's going on in that psyche?
I think that transitioning line was meant to get attention because her podcast is failing. No one wants to watch it, and she's not used to that. You know, she's used to being the center of attention. Everyone's interested in me. I don't have to try hard. And so now...
Let's talk about the kids, Gutfeld said with a grin. Because every good franchise needs a sequel. He was talking about Michelle Obama's next generation of efforts, youth programs, college initiatives, and foundation work, lined up like Marvel Phase 4. But here's the kicker, he said. When was the last time any of these programs actually delivered real results? We don't get outcomes, we get merch. The camera cut to a panelist smirking and nodding. As the audience braced themselves, this is the part no one wants to say out loud. He continued, most of Michelle's legacy, its vibes, emotional energy, curated playlists, perfect lighting, and speeches about struggle with a gospel choir behind her. And yeah, it feels good. But so does a warm bath. That doesn't mean it's fixing the damn pipes. He wasn't wrong. Michelle's messaging was smooth, emotionally, even inspiring. But Gutfeld wasn't buying it. Not tonight. Her TED Talks. He said, they're motivational mad libs. You are powerful. You are enough. You are seen. Great. Now tell that to the small business owner being crushed by regulations.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
I regret that.
Tell that to the working parent, Gutfeld added, who doesn't have time to reflect on their power because they're driving for Uber after a night shift. Now it was getting real. This isn't just about Michelle. He clarified, it's about the culture she helped shape, a world where sincerity is replaced with slogans. And making a difference means changing your profile picture. He wasn't angry, just lit up. Like someone finally saying what the whole room had been thinking but no one had dared to voice. You can't be the voice of the voiceless, he said, when you're sitting on a $12,000 designer couch, under a halo light, with your private chef in the next room. Boom, pin drop. And then he did the unthinkable. He compared Michelle Obama's influence to an iPhone. Commercial, looks sleek, sounds progressive. Everyone wants one. But the second it glitches or doesn't deliver, we blame the user, not the system. Michelle Obama is Apple politics, he said, shiny, expensive, and somehow always above criticism. The metaphor was both ridiculous and spot-on. She sells empowerment, Gutfeld added, the way Starbucks sells identity, personalized, pleasant, and of course, wildly overpriced.
Wonderful Megyn Kelly in the United States. Now, why is Michelle Obama whinging? She seems to always be whinging. Why are things so hard for her right now?
I know. I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about anything. And the latest example was when she went on this other guy's podcast, Jay Shetty. She goes and sits down with him, and he asks her, what are you afraid of? And she starts off by saying, well, it's not, my fears aren't for me. You know, I think about the streets. My fears aren't for me.
Well, in this current climate for me, it's,
Someone in the crowd lost it loud, snorting laughter. Gutfeld gave a small nod, like a conductor acknowledging his orchestra. Then came the closing argument, the moment everyone knew was coming. But it still hit like a thunderclap. She doesn't need to run for office, he said calmly, because she already governs something more powerful than policy, perception. She's the empress of optics. And when you control how people feel more than how they think, you don't need a ballot. You've got something stronger, unquestioned, influence. Now it wasn't just a roast, it was a revelation. Gutfeld leaned back, hands folded. Michelle's real superpower isn't her intelligence, he said. It's that she's your brand manager, and here's the twist. You're not the client. You're the product. Silence, then explosive laughter and applause. Because in one sharp, fearless performance, Greg Gutfeld had done what few dare to try. Stripped away the glow, the glam, and the perfectly curated mystique of America's most polished public figure, not with hate, not with politics, but with clarity. Someone had to lift the curtain. And Greg Gutfeld. He brought a flamethrower.